No, Todd, not now!
Hello and welcome inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 697. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber, and you know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, folks, we are going to talk about what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about a Japanese driver in America. I'm going to talk about signing big, scary contracts. I'm going to talk about the fine line between a form of flattery or just basically nicking intellectual property. And finally, I'm going to talk about how to sell your F1 team and survive. But before covering any of that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means... That's right. I got to go all the way into the right coast of America, nestled in our nation's capital, where she applies her skills as a master statistician. Creating meaningful questions on meaningful surveys. You know her. You love her. It's the redoubtable Grace. Grace, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm here, you know.
Grace, it's been a long time, and I can't lie. We've just had a lot of Paul lately.
Oh, I know, right? No, I know. It's like pandemic. It's like March day 873. We're still here. Right. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you'll get. It'll be off season before we know it. There's only like 6 more races or whatever. So.
Right, and then it's a lot of Grace, and then Paul, like he checks out. Like, you know, he goes to Turks and Caicos for the winter. You know?
That's right. Well, you know, he's the day job thing of his keeps him busy.
Yeah, that's how he rolls.
That's right.
So it's been a little while since we've had you on the show.
It has been.
You've watched several Grand Prix.
I have.
You've seen Lewis win all those.
Yeah.
You've seen Valtteri sweat off 3 kilograms of weight.
Yes, I did. When you put it that way, I don't want to see that.
It's a little messy. It's a little messy, if I'm serious.
I did not sign up for that. Okay.
You got to see Nico Rosberg sort of pander for a full-time job at Sky Sports F1.
Right, it's what he does, yes.
Yeah. You got to see, what else did we get to see? We got to see Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari, who's basically gotten him. Ferrari at this point have him driving around the track in a jitney at this point.
Yes, that's right. It's
yeah. It's sad.
He should be one of those guys on the mall that just, you know, the bike with the people in the carriage behind him, you know, right? Like
right.
the tourists are back there, you know, right? That's what he's doing out there.
Yeah. So you got to see it. Plus, you've got to see some pretty exciting MotoGP races.
Yeah, I think we can officially decide between Formula One and MotoGP that maybe the turn 3 at the A1 ring isn't safe. I think we're good. I think we're there now. I think we've made that.
Did you see the video of Rossi avoiding that bike as it flew?
That's crazy.
His natural just instinct to like duck, you know, it was amazing.
I just think when you see, so after they show, you know, and they show Rossi coming into the pits, right? And he's just like,
who wouldn't be?
Like that guy's seen so much, right? And he's just like, what the hell, right?
Whoa.
Like, yeah, you know, oh my God, that was crazy. And then, last week, I don't know if you saw the highlights when Maverick had to jump off the bike, Maverick Vinales, because there's no brakes. So going into so he's coming up the straight. He just had to
see that, but I didn't know why he jumped off. I thought he fell off or something, but he was going down a straight.
He was going down a straight, right?
Yeah.
Into turn 1, the brakes failed.
Oh.
So he just bailed off, and then the bike goes into the barrier and flames up.
And flames up, yeah.
Right. So we're watching the race. They go to the bike flaming up, and you're like, "Oh no!"
Where's Maverick?
I mean, MotoGP has a lot of not a lot of, you know what I mean? It has crazy accidents, and you're kind of used to that. But it was just like, okay, we're done. The season's over. We're done. Bikes are on fire.
Let's not keep going until we repeat a Simoncelli thing.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right. But But I was just like the idea that he just like bailed off, and then it was funny too because then they show because he's Rossi's teammate, and so they show the Brembo guy in talking to Rossi. I'm like, yeah, that guy better be in there talking to Rossi.
Yeah, Rossi's like, hey, let's talk about these brakes for a minute.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like, I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, I think that's the
Wow.
first guy I'd want to drag down the pit lane by his ear too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
Oh my
it reminds me
goodness.
back in the day. Remember when Goodyear was having all this trouble, and Michael
Yeah.
Schumacher was like
Okay.
finally critical of him, and the
Yeah.
Goodyear guy said, "Well, that's just crazy. I don't know who he thinks he is. Who's he think he is? God?" And I'm thinking,
Well,
he's the only guy running Goodyear tires at this point. As far as you're kind of considered,
Yeah.
he is.
yes, yes, he is.
Yeah. Hey, there's a pretty cat.
Oh, this is Ziggy. She's joining early.
Ziggy.
Usually she waits to the end of the podcast to show up, but no.
Well, girl
She's a
has
big
to have her
Sato
standards.
fan.
Well, who isn't these days?
That's right.
That's a great segue, because the
Thank
first thing I
you.
want to talk about is the Indy 500
That's-
that didn't happen in May. They waited until now.
What are they trying to do? Like, I mean, like as if I'm not confused enough by what day of the week it is or what month we're in or what season we're in. Now we're having the Indianapolis 500 in August.
Well,
I
it gets
can't.
even worse for me because this weekend the Tour de France starts, and that's always
Oh.
in June, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wow. I'll be sure to watch the sports coverage because will there be fans? Are there going to be fans? That's my favorite part of the Tour de France is when the crazy fan. Yeah. I don't know. That's my favorite part. I don't really watch Tour de France except for
the
the
guy
fans.
in the little devil outfit jumping up.
Yeah, exactly. The guy chasing with half a pig, whatever. There's always crazy fan interactions. That's my favorite part.
A guy running up the hill in butt floss. Nobody wants to see that, but it's there.
Wow,
but it is outdoors. I don't know. Maybe if everybody's wearing their mask or doing whatever they're doing or
know.
staying 6 feet. I have a hard time at the top of Tourmalet thinking everybody's going to be social distancing.
Or you just get a shirt that says like I went to the Tour de France and all I got was this crappy COVID-19. I don't know.
Right. I got the COVID.
I got the COVID.
Anyway, so Indy 500 held this past weekend. A big win for Takuma Sato. So Ziggy is in great company. She's chosen a driver to get behind. He's 43 years old.
Yeah.
It was his second Indy 500 win. He did it under caution this weekend. That's happened 16 times in the history of the Indy 500 that it's finished under a caution. And, certainly Scott Dixon not happy about that. He led most of the laps all day long, had a dominant car, but Taku made a strategic pass very late in the race and held off and did a great job. A late crash brought out that flag with just 4 laps to go, and the race ended there with Taku Taku leading Scott Dixon, and that was a hard defeat given Scott had led all day. But
go ahead. I was going to say, so Scott Dixon, there's my friend Paul Espargaro. If you'd like to give him a call, I'm pretty sure. Really? All right. I can't believe she's never. What is wrong with you? This podcast is already. Cats. This is why it's great as a video. Video thing. You get the full effect that only Todd would get to see. But Right. Anyway, so give Paul Espargaro a call because I'm sure he feels the same way. Like this is not cool, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think his wife just had a baby boy. So congrats to Scott and his wife. Is her name Emma, something like that. Anyway, it's not like I follow the Dixon family, album that closely. Anyway, here's the thing though. Look, I've said this before, and I said this regarding the British Grand Prix and other F1 races, but as an American, not seeing the throng of Indy fans at the Indy 500 it brought it home for Americans. It's like having the skeleton, the muscle, the flesh, the brain, the eyes, the ears, but not the heart, the heart of racing is the fans, and it's missing when there's no fans there. And anyone who's attended an Indy 500 will tell you it's just not the same. And it was difficult not to see just all of the fans and all those stories. There's those people that they've been coming since 1968. They haven't missed a race since 1968 or something. Those are great stories. But anyway, a big congratulations to Honda, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. The one thing I don't know if you noticed, Grace, I was slightly concerned over the time it took and the effort it took for drivers to extricate themselves from their crashed cars with that shield.
Yeah.
And I wondered how that would work for unconscious drivers, or if the car was on fire. Like the halo, I guess we won't know until it happens, unless I hope it never happens. But it looked a lot more difficult for these guys to get out, don't you think?
I agree, but the thing is that we don't have to wait for somebody to have a crash to find out if they can get out or not, right? Like, so this should be a part of any safety testing, right? Again, it's risk mitigation, right? You're trying to say, yeah, it's like wearing seatbelts, right? Like, so yes, there is the chance that you wear a seatbelt and you're in an accident and you actually get hurt more because of the seatbelt, or your car goes underwater and now you're trapped because of your seatbelt, right? But the chances of that happening, as opposed to your seatbelt keeping you in the car and not out of the car, are so high you make that risk trade-off, right? So it has to be the same thing, right? At some point, they have to have figured out that, yes, there are these corner cases where something like the safety equipment may not help you, but it has to work more times than it doesn't. And the fact that there's going to be a fiery crash, somebody has to get out, is not uncommonplace. I guess kind of like MotoGP, right? Like, this isn't an uncommonplace event that I can't believe that somebody didn't plan for it and they didn't use dummies and modeling and, like, you don't just wait until somebody has a fiery crash and go, oh, I guess we got to fix that. It didn't work. That's, we have the ability to look. We don't have to wait. This isn't the 1920s, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And it has to be the same with the halo. There has to be a plan. You have a fire drill, you have a fire plan with your family. You don't wait till your house is on fire to go, oh, Libby, where should we go? I don't know, right? You had this conversation with your family. You have this conversation in a work building. This is the same thing, right? There has to be a plan, and the marshals have to be trained, and the drivers have to be trained, and you have to practice it. I just think that, it's short-sighted, because yes, safety changes happen because of terrible things like Aaron and Senna, for example.
Yeah.
But that was an unplanned for event. I think the fact that a car might catch on fire and a driver has to get out pretty darn quick is not an unexpected event in a racing series.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And watching those drivers try to get out, it was so high that, some of the drivers are a little shorter. So like their inseam isn't as long as a tall driver. So, their legs are shorter. It's a little difficult to get your leg up over the top of that thing and get out.
Elio Castroneves is going to have a harder time than Mark Webber, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was watching them really, kind of clamor around, trying to crawl out of that thing. And I thought, man, it just tack it on the amount of time to get out of a dangerous situation like that's pretty difficult. So, I mean, I hope nothing ever comes of it. I agree. Hoping there is, but boy, I just don't know that that's the most elegant solution.
No, and I guess I stand by what I said when Halos came out. Like, I don't know. I don't have the data, but whoever designed that, and then it was signed off by, the Indy 500, their FIA, right?
Yeah.
People signed off on this. These people's lives are in your hands, right? So you have to do due diligence, even if I, as a fan, don't know what that due diligence looks like, because if something happens, you have to know that you did all you could to prevent something from happening. And I agree, knock on wood, I hope nothing happens, but I can't imagine they didn't run as many scenarios as they could think of, and getting out of the car quick has to be one of them.
Right. Yeah, I would think that it would. I don't quite understand, but neither here nor there. It just caught my attention because there was a couple accidents where they had to crawl out and it didn't look safe. Anyway, big congrats to Taku, though. That was great.
Yes,
Sato for him.
That's right.
And so I also, being truthful here, I've got to say that I didn't see the first part, about the first quarter of the
first
race.
7 hours of the Indy 500. You didn't watch that?
I missed it, so I have no idea what happened to Alonso.
I don't know.
He was down and didn't have pace, but I don't know what happened there. So
I don't know.
Apologies. Everybody's wondering. It's a Formula One podcast. I was going, well, how did Alonso do? He was like a lap down, but I don't remember what the deal was.
Part of the joy of racing being on really early in the morning is that my day hasn't started yet. So, it's a little easier to watch, MotoGP, Formula One when it's on early. But yeah, it's on in the middle of the day. It's on at like 1 o'clock. Right. I'm like, I don't know. It was on, but I was doing stuff. My days, much like yours, I'm sure, of just like sitting there for 7 hours and watching a race and not doing anything. Those days are gone. Those days are behind me now. I got stuff to do. So
long gone. All right.
Yeah, there's those days of 22 where you just like, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on, shall we? I'm not here to talk about the Indy 500, although it was a good race. I enjoyed what I watched, and so be it. We're going to talk about Formula One because there's some big news in Formula One. The first big news in this past week is that all 10 teams have signed contracts, and they've read the small print. All 10 teams have signed the new Concord agreement. And I have to say up front, I am impressed that Liberty Media got this done, because this was always going to be the single biggest issue for them as the new owners of the series, getting all 10 of these teams to sign this agreement, this new Concord agreement. And to that end, I kind of feel like, and I don't mean this this is going to come across as really negative. I don't mean it that way, but I think, with the whole advent of COVID this year, the financial stress that's created, it helped create some urgency behind this, because a lot of these teams are struggling for cash flow, looking to get refinanced, and,
Yeah, even just the number of people you can have in the factory at one time to work on things, right?
Yeah,
like there's all these things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe the COVID sort of helped create some urgency in this whole process and getting this signed. But given the dire need for cash and many of the teams, under a lot of duress, the lure of this budget cap and a better prize money distribution program probably made a lot of sense given the times that we're going through. So I think that assisted. Ferrari say that they still have their historic participation bonus, and they say they still have their veto vote. And that's surely two things that Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, and others probably had an issue with, but I'm not sure how Liberty sweetened the pot for those dissenting teams to get them to agree over the Ferrari goodies. Not sure how that worked.
They gave everybody a veto vote.
Right. Yeah, Toto's like,
veto vote. You get a veto vote.
Yeah, Toto's like, well, wait a minute.
Get down.
I have one of those.
Maybe it's like the tokens. Like everybody gets two veto tokens a year, right? And once you've spent your veto tokens, that's it.
Right. You get 2 veto development tokens. You can use one.
Actually, that would be great. I would love that because, we talk about how, like, literally the team, part of the team principal's job is just calling, what used to be Charlie Whiting, that's now Michael, right? Like, call Michael, tell him we're not okay with this, right? That could be like, call Michael, I'm using my token. This is BS.
That's it. I'm using my token.
I'm using my token. This would be great. I love it.
A token could become a verb.
Yes.
They got tokened.
I got tokens.
Exactly. So I'm not sure how they got the other teams to agree to the Ferrari goodies still in there. The historic, I'm sure it's less.
Maybe they just feel bad. Maybe they're like, well, Ferrari. Womp womp. Maybe
right. They're kind of like, it's poor Ferrari.
I know, right? Well, because then you can be like next year when they aren't doing as well, you can be like, well, we let you have your extra money.
Right. You got your veto. Sorry about the running at the back of the grid with Williams.
I gave you what you wanted, and you're still not doing good. Yeah.
I don't know. I can only imagine those were difficult.
I'd love it to be a fly on the wall. Although I'm sure like 90% of it is boring, and then like 10% of it was interesting.
Oh, some of it was.
And it's always a big emotion.
A big emotion.
Yeah. That's what I'm there for. I want to see that, but I don't want the like actual boring details. I don't care, whatever.
Yeah. But, it's almost sounded like Toto was the arm waving more so than Mattia Donato.
I want Toto to be like, you're out of order. You're out of order. That's what I want to see,
you
right?
You can't handle the truth.
Exactly.
You're goddamn right I did.
That's what I want to see, right? Like that would, that's, until proven otherwise, that's what I'm going to pretend happened. That's great.
I like
He's full Jack Nicholson. I think it's great.
I think it's good too. I like that. So I think that would have been interesting to be in there and listen to all of that and listen to it get heated and Toto stand up and pound the desk and go,
put that cookie down now.
Right.
Not a Tuma.
I think that would have been good.
Would have been good. Okay.
Regardless, this is a very positive thing. And while
Yeah.
one is ever for certain, having all 10 teams signed to a tripartite agreement goes a long ways, folks, to ensuring the health of the sport going in the future. So that is really good. The first thing that jumped out to me when I read the headline that all 10 teams had signed, I don't know why. It was just the very first thing I thought of. As soon as I read it, I go, wow, Gene Haas signed up for 5 more years. And that's really good.
There you go.
I thought he was, honestly, I thought he was out. I thought why would he want to go? Next year, they froze the cars.
I watched Drive to Survive. Why is he still in?
Exactly. So if they're freezing the cars, next year is going to be like this year. Why would Gene want to put himself through this?
Oh, yeah, right.
And I honestly thinking, wow, I could see Gene leaving at the end of this year. But if he signed, he's up for another 5 years, and that's great for American fans and have an American team in there. It's great.
And Gunther Steiner.
Yes, you got the Steiner in there, but now we're going to have 2 American teams, but more on that later.
You're right. And
all right.
Romo.
Speaking of 2 American teams, back in the late 1970s, a young enterprising man named Frank Williams created Williams Racing. Actually, it was called Williams Grand Prix Engineering Limited back then. But you get the point. Williams.
Very catchy. I don't know why he ever changed it.
Hi, I'm Frank of Williams Grand Prix Engineering Limited.
That's right. Just rolls right off the top. Fits
It does.
right on that business card, right?
It does. And he's spent decades finally coming up with his new pitch. All he's got to do is go, hi. And everyone knows it's Frank.
In a PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, exactly. You just, here's the beginning. It's got the Williams logo. It says, okay, here we go. Slide 1. There it is.
We're over. Pass the hat.
Right. So back then, Frank got into Formula One. After 114 race victories in F1, 312 podiums, 133 fastest laps, 9 constructors titles, and 7 drivers titles, they've called it a day and sold the team to a US-based investment group called Doralton for a rumored $180 million.
I like that there's a running joke, Saturday, whenever the news broke, that it was Doritos. And, yeah. I like that.
And I said it was going to be the Cool Ranch team.
Exactly. So I think that we should all go with the Doritos. That's and it's American, right? So what's more American than Cool Ranch Doritos? Not much.
Yeah,
so
Cool Ranch Doritos. Yeah, exactly.
I like
the
this.
Cool Ranch F1.
Yeah.
Right? The Cool
Led
Ranch
by Claire
GP.
Williams. That's right.
I liked your hand. Claire Williams. I give you Claire Williams.
That's right. So, yeah, great. Cool Ranch.
Now,
Okay.
we knew that Williams was looking for investments. We knew that. To stay afloat during the COVID, and they mortgaged their historic. Now, I do find this interesting. Remember, folks, that they mortgaged basically their entire fleet of historic race cars to Iranian-Canadian businessman Michael Latifi. And you may think, that sounds really familiar. You're right, because Michael's son, Nicholas Latifi, currently drives for Williams F1.
Pretty good. You get all our historic cars, and your son gets a seat at our team.
And your son gets a seat at the team, right? And a lot of people thought that Michael may be the guy that would come in and buy the team.
Right.
Not so fast. That's not what happened. Michael just was keen to buy the historic race cars.
Yeah.
That's what he's got. I'm interested to see if the new owners pay Michael off to get those historic cars back and keep that in the whole ecosystem of Williams F1, right? So keep your eye on that. I think that's interesting because Michael may be thinking, heck no.
I just built the garage. You don't get them back.
I just got a 32-car garage we built here in Saskatchewan.
I just bought the Paragon off of McLaren, and I'm having it boated over here. I'm not giving them back.
Right. I bought the square building at McLaren, not the round thing.
That's right. The other building.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I think that's going to be interesting to see what they do there. but they sold that because the team needed a large investor as well, and they needed cash to keep going. So they did that first. Then they hired a professional merger and acquisition folks to help them find the right buyer. Now, as it turns out, Dorito was the right buyer, and as a single family investment group who champions itself as a long-term investor, keen on reinvesting cash flow back into organizations, it very well could be the right fit. I'm telling you what their website says about Doralton and how they roll. It's a single family group.
Is this like Mission Winnow? It's just going to be some words and we really still don't know what Mission Winnow actually does?
Vague D logo of some sort. Hell, it could be a barcode for all or a QR code would be even better.
Right.
You know?
That's right. That actually spells out Marlboro if you look at it the right way, right?
Yeah, or Doral. You know, wait, what? Doritos? Doralton.
Doritos. I think Doritos is fine. Whatever.
You know, you got to go back to 2009 or whenever this company was. How did they come up with Doralton?
I don't know. That must be on their webpage.
Oh, it's a family name or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a. It doesn't flow from the
Doralton. No.
Doralton. You know.
Right. So yeah. So then you'd have what? Frank Williams Doralton Grand Prix Engineering LDT. Perfect.
Right.
Rolls right off my tongue.
Right. Here, let me give you a little tip. Just rename the team Zoran GP.
Yes. Come on.
Yes. That'd be a lot easier. Okay. As it turns out,
or hire Zolt Bumgardner and just call it Zolt.
Zolt F1. That's awesome.
Zolt.
I haven't heard of a name that good since Super Aguri.
Yeah, see?
That one.
We got this.
That was good. What will be interesting as we've seen these investment groups come and go in Formula One, folks, keep in mind, we've had other investment groups. Remember Genie Capital? Not too long ago, right? So if you're new to Formula One, just look up Genie Capital, Lotus, that whole debacle, and Tony Fernandez, and the whole, Huckster.
I forgot about that
thing.
guy.
Yeah, remember that guy? Yeah.
There's
a lot of investors haven't forgot about that guy.
No, they're sitting at his doorstep.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Tony.
Hey.
Yeah. He's going the way of what's his face? Vijay Mallya.
I was just gonna say from Force India. They live next door.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they'll both be on the lam here in a minute.
Exactly.
But what I'm interested in is the investment group says that they'd like to reinvest their cash flow back in over the long term. And that very well could be absolutely true. But what I'll be interested to see is we've seen these investment groups come and go, but how much of an appetite is this group going to have for running at a loss for 4 to 5 years? If you consider that Red Bull took 6 to 7 years to turn Jaguar around, Mercedes the same amount of time to turn around, and McLaren the same time to turn around, then you start to get the picture that turning a team around in Formula One is no quick fix. So they're going to have to be willing and have an appetite to bankroll this loss for quite a while, because they are literally at the back of the grid. So for them to say, hey, we want to get back to the front of the grid, do you know how hard that, I mean, for examples, I give you Ferrari, right?
Get your veto tokens ready.
Yeah, get your veto token out. Have it handy.
Don't even put it away.
No.
I don't know. I remember, so when, speaking of Indy cars, so when we had the Baltimore Grand Prix, at first it was just like, oh, this is going to be this great thing, and it's going to bring all this money to Baltimore, and we just laughed because nobody makes money off these things. It's like the Olympics, right? It brings you something, but boatloads of cash is not what it brings you as a city, right? And but by year 3, they were kind of like, oh, shucks, we aren't making money, we're losing money. Yeah. Did you never talk to somebody besides IndyCar about this? You didn't call up Houston or, Long Beach or whatever,
right,
and say what was your experience with IndyCar? Because of course they're going to tell you, look at all this money you'll be making and you'll bring all these people to the Inner Harbor, and guess what? Baltimore found out that was lies. So I hope this isn't the same situation, right?
It was lies. Oh, lies!
It was lies.
I hope that they actually talk to somebody and have the information which you have just shared with us, right? That this is not just wink, wink, nudge, nudge long term. No, this could be 10 years long term, right? That you're just hemorrhaging money. Are you really really ready for that, because even if what is a successful goal for Williams? Again, I'm just being realistic. Please don't. I love Williams. Everybody loves Williams, but had some tough times, and George Russell is kind of like Alonso at McLaren at this last run, right? Like if George can get it somewhere, then you're like, well, that car, that's more than a normal person could get out of that car, right? So.
Yeah. But it is F1. I mean, just the series.
They should call Gene Haas, right? Like that's the first person that
what Gene would do? He'll get the guy at Doralton. He'll walk to the end of the paddock, looking all the way down the other side of the paddock. He'll look over at him and he'll go,
"You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy."
That's exactly what Gene would say.
That's right. That's right. So I think that I hope that they really do know what they're getting themselves into, because I think it's already bad enough that Williams is in the position it's in, and that's not going to change, and that we can't have independent teams anymore, and that's not going to change. But you wouldn't want somebody that can't really hold it on the investment side, right? And that they're out in 2 years or something, or they move it next door to Tony Fernandez, right?
Yeah, it turns into an HRT deal or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being negative, folks. Don't get me wrong. I'm not negative about the acquisition. I think it's been overdue for a while. But Doralton could be, let's give them credit. They could be that kind of very quiet company that actually has massively deep pockets. I don't know. Or they could just be a very quiet, small firm with limited budgets. I don't know. But what I can tell is that buying a full team for $180 million, that's a very good entry fee to Formula One. One that Gene Haas probably wishes he could have done.
Yeah, for sure.
And I got news for him. We told him at the onset that he could buy Marussia for that.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He started his own team, and fair enough. But as far as getting access to Formula One and a team, given their budgets, they're probably in at the right price. Doralton suggests that they're patient, and they do invest in manufacturing and engineering and more technical businesses. And the CEO, I think if I read his bio right, he's sort of an engineer by schooling. So there's that. I think he's kind of a propeller head. So I think that's good too. So I don't know. I don't want to castigate the group here right out of the box. I think it's good. A lot of people saying, well, they're going to keep Sir Frank around, or they're going to have Claire around. None of the press releases said anything about that, but
I think you just want what's best for them, right? It's like your kids. You tell them to be home before the street lights come on. Why? Because you care about them. Sure. It's the same way with Williams. We just want them to make it. And I think that to get an investor and have that investor really not know what they're getting themselves into would not be good for Williams.
Right.
I also think after Doritos calls Gene Haas and they have a conversation, I think the next person they should call is Patrick Head and hire him, because that would be some messiness. I like the idea of Patrick Head working for the investor.
I like the idea of getting the band back together.
And he's on the other side. It's kind of like now how we have Ross Braun on the other side of the table, right? Like, I just like him showing up with a briefcase full of crackers and being like, hey guys, I'm here from the investor. I'm just going to sit here and watch what you're doing.
Right. You could bring back Patrick Head. You could bring back some of the old drivers, Ralph Schumacher, Pastor Maldonado.
That's strange. I wonder what's causing all the accidents.
That would be good.
That's right. This is my friend Pastor. I think you've met.
I think you've bumped into each other.
Yeah. you've rubbed fenders, right? Yeah. That would be awesome.
So anyway, keep your eye on that. There's a part of me, we've all said this for 697 podcasts. We all love Williams.
Yes.
We want Williams to do well. I hate it that they had to sell.
Yeah.
It's been probably overdue and a long time coming. I just, beyond Sir Frank and Claire, that doesn't concern me as much as the team does and all the men and women who work for Williams. They've worked their tails off trying to field a car in a very anemic budget. And I just hope this new group comes in and sort of revitalizes and gives new energy to that group that's spent a lot of time working really hard for Claire and Frank. So anyway.
I agree.
All right. Next bit of what Paul might call controversy is happening this weekend, Grace.
Oh, okay.
This weekend is the Belgian Grand Prix.
It sure is.
At Spa-Francorchamps.
Yes, where it rains on one half and not the other half.
I was just going to say, Grace, did you know that it could be raining on one part of the track and not the other?
The Ardennes Forest.
That's one of its secrets, and I'm just astounded that most television broadcasts never mention that.
This is kind of like how I've never been to England, and there's very few places I know, like, other than like London, right? But it's because of where teams have their headquarters, or, like Jensen Button's from Frome, or, Lewis is from Stevenage. Like, so I have
a couch in Stevenage.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have some like random knowledge of random cities
right.
in England, but only because, Milton Keynes, I don't know, right? Like, because there's Formula One things there. And it's the same sort of thing, right? Like,
there's really only one destination.
Ardennes Forest. I don't know anything, but I know it's at Spa because they mention it every time.
Yeah, but there's only one destination in the UK, Grace. It's Kent.
That's right. The Kent Grand Prix I did enjoy.
Yeah, Kent GP. Yeah. John Paul Jones is from Kent.
The nation of Kent? Really? I didn't know that.
Nation of Kent. Okay. Keith Richards is from Kent.
Wow.
Peter Cushing is from Kent. Where do you want? Do I have to go on to tell you the paradise that is Kent?
Apparently so.
I'm telling you, you Kentonians, you find the mayor of that incredible. I said on Twitter today, London exists because Kent allows it.
There you go.
There you go.
I'll take it.
All right. I've never been to Kent, folks. I have no idea. I'm sure it's a delightful place, just loaded with wonderfully sweet people. I've never been there. I don't know. If I ever went to the UK, I don't know that Kent would be the first place I'd go to. But now, after I've made up this and blown up this whole thing around Kent on this podcast, right? I kind of have to now. I would have probably went to Cornwall. Yeah. But what do I know? Although May went to Newcastle. See, the British just have that all together. It's like Newcastle on Tyne, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
See, Grace, you would be Washington on Swamp if you were in the UK.
Well, the British have a more descriptive use of the English language than we do over here. They do.
And their analogies or their
much better
turn of phrases say more visually than we could in 1,000 words.
Exactly.
I just love that. If I was in UK, I would be living in St. Louis on River.
Yes. St. Louis on Arch. I don't know. I was trying to
right. Yeah. St. Louis by Arch.
Oh, that would work. There you go.
See? Yeah.
There you go.
Good. All right. So this weekend at Spa-Francorchamps, big controversy. This weekend, we'll see a ban on qualifying modes in the engines at the Belgian Grand Prix. And most believe this will impact Mercedes and Mercedes-powered teams. The FIA reckons having just one engine mode for the race and qualifying will eliminate some of that, quote, party mode nonsense and level the playing field, as well as neuter the Merc team, who seem to have power in spades whenever they want it, such as qualifying. As ever, Toto has an opinion on that.
Well, he should.
Well, of course he does.
It's down.
And he's spinning the ban differently than most of the media. Here's what Toto said, quote, "We see it very much as a challenge. We have a good quality mode and we're able to give it a little bit more power in the last session. But if that is not possible anymore because everything needs to be smoothed out over the race, then it's not a deficit for us. On the contrary, we think we can translate it into more performance in the race. That is something that is a great challenge for us that we'll take on once the rule is implemented." So the concept here is that running quasi modes quali modes.
like Quasimodo.
Yeah.
Quasi modes.
The concept is running quasar modes. I mean, what? Quasar? What the hell?
Ludicrous speed. Don't prepare to go, just go.
Like you read autocorrect is like, I don't know what's going on. Hey,
Can I say, speaking of Spaceballs, this is a total tangent. So you know how sometimes the ads you get on Facebook, you're like, that's a little too close to home. I think my phone really is listening onto me. I saw an ad that somebody created a mask that said Spaceballs the mask. That's hilarious.
Yeah, right.
I would almost buy that.
That's good.
Spaceballs the mask. See, they really do have everything covered. Goes
So
with
the
thumper.
concept is running. The concept is that running quali modes has a price during the race, as teams only get 3 engines for the season. So the wear and tear of a party mode during quali means that limits how they can run in the race, or at least that's the counter argument here that he's making. I would go to the wall with that if I didn't happen to know that Merck over-engineer their engines and run thousands upon thousands of miles. So I'm not quite sure they're at risk of a reliability issue during the race.
They're not McLaren of old.
No. It's one thing to say, yeah, I only have 3 engines. You know, if we're going to run those quali modes, it means we can't in the race because the reliability issue. I'm thinking, no, dude, you over-engineer the snot out of these things, man. These things run for thousands. You run enough miles to go to Mars and back on these damn things.
Yeah.
Craps just because you up the wick a little bit during quali.
Yeah, we all believe, his aw shucks, aw shucks, what are we going to do now? Yeah, Toto, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So anyway, time will tell. But if quali is slightly slower for Mercedes, it may have had an impact. But if you're a Mercedes fan, I'm happy to tell you that it probably won't matter a damn bit anyway, because they had 7/10 to a full second on the entire grid during quali anyway. And that was with party mode. So if they don't go with quali mode or party mode, they've got 7/10 or a full second to give back. So I think they're going to be okay. We'll see.
I mean, really, Lewis won with, 2.5 tires. I think they got it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the guy could have hopped out and pushed his car over the line.
Yeah, right. Like Alonso, right?
Yeah. Nigel Mansell,
I think, okay. This is like, Usain Bolt's wearing old tennis shoes or something. I don't know. Like, he's still Usain Bolt, man.
Yeah, he's still gonna run fast. Yeah, right.
Right. I don't think that's really gonna hamper him. But all right, nice try.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
I would also, if I was Mercedes, like if I was Lewis, I would just troll people on the radio. I would just mention party mode all the time. Hey, Bono, is now when we use party mode? Not supposed to mention that. I totally would just troll everybody because everybody's all over that now. That's
right. That's a pretty good idea.
Oh, call Michael. I'm using party mode. Let Sebastian know. I would totally do it.
The last thing I want to talk about tonight is carbon copies. The FIA ruling against Racing Point and the ensuing appeals are all set to reduce the amount of car copying that happens in F1. And this was born from the listed and non-listed parts idea, which even had tongues wagging when Haas F1 entered the sport, you'll recall.
Yes,
but their car wasn't a wholesale copy of a Ferrari like Racing Point's pink Mercedes, so to speak.
Right.
Or at least that's what's being leveled at Racing Point.
Yeah.
All right. So Racing Point, you recall, was found to have copied the rear brake duct of a Mercedes from 2019. And while they could have done that back then, and it would have been legal, they didn't use that rear brake duct design in 2019. They used the fronts, but not the rears.
Right.
However, in 2020, they brought in both front and rears. That was based on that 2019 design, which in 2020, the regulations changed, and that was not legal.
Right.
Now, according to Autosport, both the FIA head of single-seaters, Nicholas Tambazzi, and Secretary General of Motorsport, Peter Baer, have confirmed they will put an end to car copying by updating the regulations for next year. Huh. Okay.
Okay, wait. Single seat, isn't that what is that, not rally cars?
Yeah.
Isn't almost everything under the FIA single seaters? I don't know. I just thought that was a
no. GT racing wouldn't be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Rally wouldn't be.
Yeah, rally. I got that.
Anything with more than one seat in it.
I understand the concept, but what is the other guy called? Is he the head of multi-seaters?
Quick, give me the head of multi-seat racing. Hi, I'm Fred. I'm the head of multi-seat racing.
I mean, I've heard of Nicholas Tambazzi. Like, I've heard that name. Like, I realized that he's part of but I never realized that he was the head of single seaters. Like, okay, I didn't.
Quick, Nicholas, get us the head of shooting brake racing. Yes,
Right.
I'm the head of shooting brake car racing.
Here I am. I'm
Here I
Frank.
am.
Yeah, I just. All right. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to find this information out because now I'm just curious.
Oh yeah.
What's the other guy called?
Well, and Nicholas is a good reason to get curious about it. You know, he's an elusive guy, that Nicholas Timbazzi. No, I don't know Nicholas.
I don't know. Head of the single seaters.
Well,
Okay.
I do know he's ahead of single seaters. I do know that. So anyway, in that same article from Autosport,
Yeah.
Racing Point's Otmar Zafnauer weighed in on this.
Love that guy. Can I just say that Otmar Schnafnauer's
Zafnauer.
yes,
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, his verbal. What he's like Kamala Harris. We're just going to pronounce it differently every time because
Why
I
not?
can't handle this, right?
Yeah.
Otmar Schnafnauer, his verbal jiu-jitsu is amazing.
It is.
Like his ability, because he was, I think it was the Kent Grand Prix, right? That he was the team principal that Sky Sport went to. That was great. I'm like, you're a genius. Like his ability to be like. The way I see it, because you just explained it, it's a pretty straightforward thing that the other teams are complaining about. And yet he was able to be like, well, here's what I see it as. And you're like, I see,
But see,
right?
it's exactly right. And I'm going to chalk that up with all those years doing the Shell and P game working for VJ.
Yeah,
He
got it.
really good and quick
yeah.
on his feet, right?
We'll do it live.
He just does
He's
it
good.
live, you know?
Yeah.
He's really good at that. So anyway, here's what he had to say about the FIA saying we are clamping down on car copying. He said this: I don't think it changes our business model at all. We're not the most affected team. I don't know who else is more affected than that. But anyway, he says, we've got 500 employees. The reason we don't have 700 or 800 like some of the bigger teams is that we lack in-house manufacturing. But if you just compare us to everyone else in design, development, aero personnel, we are the same. We're the same as the big teams. It has zero impact. We've always been a constructor from the days of Jordan to the days of Racing Point and everywhere in between. We've got the capability of designing, developing, constructing all of our own components. It will have zero impact on our business model. If the rules become more clear, we will stay within the bounds of those rules. Absolutely no problem.
As they've done so far. The rules are pretty clear, dude.
Just like they've done so far. Yes.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I just he says stuff, and I'm just like, this is why you have the job you have, and I don't.
That's right. It's good. On one end of that spectrum, you wonder if they have the chops, like he says. Then why use Merck's design, right? But that's where this all gets into the long grass over this listed and non-listed part issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, why recreate the wheel if you can buy the parts from Mercedes? There's a part of me that says, why wouldn't you copy their aero body work and use their engine and use their gearbox and use their brake ducts? If it was legal in 2019, why wouldn't you use all that, right? Just the same as Haas said when they entered the series. Mm-hmm. We're buying all of these parts on this list from Ferrari, right. And it's legal. So I found, I can't really knock them on that. Now, on the other hand, why wouldn't they have used the rear brake ducts in 2019, even though you were allowed to, but you chose not to use the fronts, but not the backs? And then why would you have used them in 2020 knowing this wasn't legal? Or did you know? Mm-hmm. Was it an oversight? Or did they do this believing it was fully legal because they had the intellectual property in 2019 and they reckon they could do that? I don't know. It's a conundrum. It's a head scratcher.
Maybe somebody just found the IKEA box in the corner of a storage room somewhere and we're like, let's
that
use
could
these.
Be. Somebody was going through, doing inventory, pulled out a box, like, oi, hey, we've got Mercedes brake ducts over here. Did you know that?
Because it's is it the third Indiana Jones movie? They're just in this giant, because the Ark of the Covenant just gets rolled into this giant, storage room, and they go and find it in the third one or whatever, which is a terrible movie to watch it. But yeah, so I just assumed that the Ark of the Covenant, it's just in this giant government storage room somewhere, and somebody opened it up and went, oh, right, here it is. Let's use this.
We called the Borg, Indiana.
So I don't.
I didn't know you could fly a plane. Fly? Yes. Land? No.
No.
Don't get me
great.
started on that movie.
We've moved into a new movie after all these years together.
Right. You don't believe me, Dr. Jones?
I think that, but I just always also babies with pacifiers are always like the idol in the beginning of Indiana Jones because you have to like do the switch real quick, right? Like
yeah,
if
right.
that child knows it doesn't have a binky for a moment, you're done. That kid doesn't stop crying, right? So you have to always have a spare ready.
Right. Well, the other thing of this, Grace, is it could have a knock-on effect. I mean, he may be right. If they go through and redo this whole listed, non-listed part, this could have an immediate and expensive knock-on effect for Haas. You know, it's not that Haas is copying Ferrari's aero design and bodywork.
Right.
But if they come out and just wholesale change the listed parts, list, if they come out with more of a clamp down on what you can and can't use, that could have an instant financial impact on Haas in a negative way.
So there's two things. One is always, anytime you change things, it costs more money, right? Don't change things. Second, call Dave Richardson and let's just have customer cars already. Like, why every year do we keep going in this circle? The sport is, I would love for constructors and manufacturers to remain independent. That's just not possible. It hasn't been possible. It's not going to become possible. So why don't we address this issue instead of this silliness?
Yeah, it's tough because when you have a lot of manufacturers, it is possible because they make their own cars. But the other side of that is that when the technology is so over the top expensive now, privateers can't afford it. And they have to do this listed parts. I think this is going to be difficult. If it does impact Haas, keep in mind, he just re-upped for another 5 years. So that's going to be an interesting conundrum for them if it does impact them. The other thing you brought up is when I wrote the piece on our website, that would be at theparcfermé.com, on the contract, the Concord agreement being signed, I wrote in there, keep your eyes on this whole customer car thing, because Franz Toast just came out a couple of weeks ago saying that he thinks it's high time that customer cars are allowed. Sir Frank Williams has always been against that, even though he got his start in Formula One in an era of customer cars. The March chassis was a customer car. So it's not unprecedented at all. Although Frank and McLaren and others would make you think that the regulations, if Formula One's always had its DNA, you've got to be a constructor. There have been times in Formula One that has not been the case.
Right.
So if the affordability of this and the lower budget cap and everything that's coming would allow for that, like you said, Dave Richards wanted to do this a few years ago, and they said no, he couldn't do it, so he didn't enter F1. Probably the best choice he made, but. Yeah, keep your eye on this. This is going to be.
I don't know. I feel like a broken record, right? Like, I'd love to have a Ferrari or something. I'd love to have a Lamborghini, but then I have nothing else, right? So is getting that new fancy McLaren worth having no other money, right? Like, no, right? So I think that these are always choices and decisions that we have to make, and Formula One's no different. You can keep going down this path, and then you're going to keep having these teams and these paid drivers and all these other things that we all complain about all the time, and that's a byproduct of that. So you have to decide what you want. Do you want the orange McLaren, or do you want a house and food? You decide, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
There's solutions to this, and it's not necessarily customer cars, but they got it. Having your cake and eating it too just hasn't been realistic for 20 years now. And so let's just solve it and stop having this discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm sure all their listeners are tired of me having this discussion.
I'm sure they are. All right, let's move on. Let's do some awards, shall
Todd
we?
for sure is done with it.
After talking about this topic for 697 episodes. Now let's move on to awards. The first award of this podcast is always Post of the Week. All right, Post of the Week. Hat tip goes to
Autosport.
Yeah.
Patrick Head.
Post of the Week on the Botas on black overalls. He said they were black and they were way too hot, and he basically lost 3 kilograms of body weight during the last Grand Prix. Anyway, oh my gosh, I don't even have written down who said this. That's how bad this is. Hold on. I'm going to do this in real time.
Okay. I'll fill in the space. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. Why is the Mormon Tabernacle Choir neither Mormon nor tabernacle? Discuss.
Mike 148.
Okay.
Mike 148 wrote this, and I am sharing this as post of the week because I would like the listeners to chime in and tell us the answer to this. Mike 148 asks, must drivers wear the same color suits? In the past, I remember teammates with overalls of different colors. Well, Mike, you're absolutely right. In the past, they have. And I would say that they're probably more than welcome to, but in Formula One, I can't say that because remember the time where they had the Lucky Strike car and then the other tobacco, it was a complete different livery. And the FI said, can't do that. Both cars have to be exactly the same livery. And then remember their brilliant, creative thing. They just cut the car in half and half the car was Lucky Strikes and the other, was the other brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know the answer to that. My inclination would be that they could, but I don't know that definitively.
I think that a sport that regulates how many helmet changes, how many helmet liveries they can have, for lack of a better phrase, I'm sure there's something in the rules.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, because they were like allowed 2 helmet liveries or whatever. Like, have a new livery each race. Who cares? It's your team's money or your pocket or whatever. Why does that make a difference? Can't see their helmets anymore anyway. Just look for the little camera, right? Like, isn't that how everybody else tells which driver it is?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's a good question though.
It is a good question. I don't know, but I do wonder too, is even because the black is tied to Black Lives Matters, right? Like, so there is that extra social component to it too. It's not just like they decided to have black.
Oh, it wasn't a random choice. Hey, let's do black overalls. No.
Right. So I wonder also if there's some social component to it as well. Like that it's not just like it was Botus's favorite color and now he doesn't want to wear it anymore. Like, is there some sort of social commentary involved as well? I think you'd have to, from a company perspective, be cautious about that.
Yeah, but I understand your point. I don't think that Valtteri's saying.
I'm not.
He's saying that black is just.
It's hot. I don't care. Right. I agree.
So,
they could be anything, but I just think that the company, as like a company perspective, has to think about that.
Yeah, they've established. Hey, we're gonna have black livery, black suits, and all that stuff, and that's what they're messaging. So, let's see. The next award is Grace's favorites because it's the Lewis Hamilton Fashion Award. Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him. Yesterday, Lewis. Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him. Yesterday, Lewis. Woo! Okay. I'm going to do something just for the viewers of this podcast. I'm going to try to share my screen because here, folks, here is your winner. If I can share it and it works, there it is. Grace.
There it is.
What I'm sharing.
There's so much. Where does one even begin?
It's Lewis Hamilton. He's wearing a pair of shorts. He's wearing a pair of tube socks. He's wearing a pair of like multicolored shoes, trainers. Yeah. He's got a t-shirt on that has like a black and white print, like a newspaper print or something. He's got his mask on. He's got round black tinted sunglasses and a hunter orange stocking cap on.
There's so much going on here.
So much. It's a collision. It's brilliant.
I feel like, like it's something like a game you would have done at camp as kids, right? Or something like run into your closet as fast as you have to put on this article, run around a circle and take it all off again, right? Like, and this is just the random,
right.
They do that at basketball games with the kids, right? Like they have them put on like giant oversized pants and big shoes, and then you have to try to shoot it. And then that's what this looks like.
Going on there.
It's crazy. There's some, I don't know. It just looks like some random stuff out of his closet.
It does. It's too good.
It is pretty good.
Skipping leg day. Come on that, Lewis. Come on.
Well, he's got to stay slim.
No, I know. He's a sparring weight. He's got to fit in those little cockpits in the little car.
That's right. He's got to get in that little car and then be able to get back out of that little car.
And drive around that little circuit. Yep, that's exactly right. All right.
That's right. Maybe it's the black overalls.
Well, he could have lost the 3 kilograms in his legs.
All in his legs.
Yeah. My thighs. My calves.
Oh my God, they're gone.
My knees are knobby. What's wrong with me? Anyway, do we have another? We have a Bravado Award. Yes, of course we do. It's the Gunther Steiner Bravado Award, brought to you by Grace and her renaming of this award, because, we were running out of recipients, but I think instead of the Sean Bratches, the Gunther Steiner Award.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I do like it. So anyway, I'm giving this Hat Tap ESPN F1 for their Bottas interview, in which he was asked if he had the hardest job in F1, which was being Lewis Hamilton's teammate. And here's what Bottas said.
Somebody asked him that?
Yeah. ESPN reporter asked him that. That was kind of a leading question. He was like, Grace, do you have the hardest job in podcasting, having Negative Camera as your teammate?
Yeah.
Like, well, no.
I guess. What are you supposed to do there?
No.
Okay.
So here's what he said, quote, against Lewis, yeah, for sure. It's a great challenge. If you look at his record, he's pretty impressive. And I know it's tough to beat him, but I also know I can do it. It's the toughest job in F1. I still get to be in the best car and have the opportunity every weekend to win the race. It's there for me to get. So that's why it makes it a bit easier. I don't mind working hard for it because, there's going to be a reward if it goes well. I think it's a good place to be. He's basically saying, yeah, I can beat the 6-time world champion. He's not, he's good. He's tough to beat, but I can beat him. And hey, by and by, every weekend I get that car, I'm going to win a race, or he will.
Yeah. So we're good.
Everything's good. It's all good then.
He really made some lemonade out of that
lemon
question. Yeah.
That was pretty good.
He should work with Ottmar Schnafnauer. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Pretty some circular logic going on there. Like, so was that a yes or a no?
Right. Oh boy. All right. Well, let's do some mailbag.
You got mail.
We do have some mail. Okay. Mark Schreiber asks us this. Longtime listener, but new to Patreon and also the website. Okay. Question for all of you. Did you see the fastest of all post that F1.com just put out regarding the machine learning rankings of the drivers? A few surprises on there for me, at least. Mark, I did see that. I was going to write a piece on it, and I just ran out of time. I'd still actually like to write a piece on that. There was, they basically said, as Mark mentioned, Formula1.com did this with Amazon data nerds, and they did all this data that they put in and took out.
Is it the same nerds as the graphics nerds? Because I got some bones to pick with those guys.
No, I think it's different nerds on this one.
Okay.
But they came up with this list of fastest of all, and it was based on qualifying thing. And there was all these variables, but the way that they did the data harvesting and then the calculation of the data was to remove all these random variables and to really dig down and get the real meat of the situation. A couple names on there, like Heikki Kovalainen is on that list. And there were some surprises. There's some not surprises. Senna, Schumacher, of course, Lewis Hamilton. Those guys are all on there. But I did find it interesting. I don't know that it serves a lot of purpose. I think a lot of people on that list with no championships, and then you've got Jim Clark, who, if memory escapes, is not on that list. And Jimmy Clark is no slouch. I would argue he's probably, in my mind, but if not one of the best in history.
I mean, I have to look at the post. I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, it's always hard when you compare across
eras.
Yeah, I was going to say generations. Era is the right word, right? And I think that's true in all sports, but that's especially true in racing because so much is different. It's not just like basketball is played differently now than it was then or something like that. Like cars are literally a different thing now than they were.
Technology is different, yeah.
Right, in Jim Clark's era. So I think that
I think their metrics do take that into account.
I'm sure it does. I'm interested.
Yeah. No, but you're a statistician, so check that out because I'd love to get your comment on it.
Sure.
Too.
And I'm sure this was run by a bunch of data scientists, which is a whole nother podcast of its own.
Yeah. I think it probably was.
Data scientists. What do they know?
But anyway, most importantly, Mark, thanks for listening and thanks for becoming a Patreon supporter
Always.
We really appreciate that, Mark. So welcome aboard, and it's great to have you on board. And thanks for asking that question. Really appreciate it. Next question is Andrew Page. Hi, guys. And fair warning, I put all of my notes together, thought I was done, and like 20 seconds before we were going to record, I realized I forgot to put in the mailbag section. So I went back, grabbed these, put them in. Grace and I haven't even read these yet. So these are actually going live here, and you're going to get our knee-jerk reaction to these mailbags. Hi, guys. Do you think the sale of Williams F1 team to an American group of investors will expand the fan coverage in the USA of the sport and possibly encourage the likes of Haas and others to participate more in the long run? Been a fan of the show, Andrew from UK. Andrew, welcome. Thanks for the question. Hello to all of you in the UK that live in and around and near Andrew. And if any of you are going through Andrew's trash, going through his bins, leave him alone. Andrew's a good guy. So, all right. You're gonna make him mad. He's gonna move to Kent and he's gonna live in paradise. So Andrew, yes. Answer to your question. No, I don't think Williams being owned by an American group will increase or expand F1 coverage. I think most of Formula One fans in America will be happy that there's now 2 American-owned teams in Formula One, and Formula One itself is owned by an American company. And, you know, at this rate, you guys will be racing ovals.
Oh my gosh.
Working out exactly the way that they wanted it. Oh, that's evil Yankees.
I think the thing is that, like so many things, I think that becomes secondary, right? I need you to save Williams first. And I don't care what continent you come from, right? Save Williams, right? And I'll be your fan, right? So, so sure, it's cool. It's cool that, you know, it's like an American company, but it really could be a company from anywhere. I just want them to save Williams and be in it for the long haul. And I think, and I also think there's more Formula One fans than in America than people think. I know that's really how I felt, right? You know, it's very isolating here because there aren't a lot of Formula One fans, and that you don't run into people. Like I run into basketball fans all the time, or I run into football fans all the time. You just don't run into Formula One fans.
It's contextual too, because there are a lot of Formula One fans in America, but there's also 330 million people in America.
Yeah. Sure.
So the odds of finding Formula One fans is a little more difficult than living on an island of 60 million people, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and having the history of Formula One like the UK does.
Sure, absolutely. And
a lot easier to go around America and bump into NASCAR fans.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
but I mean it's a truism because NASCAR is born here, and
right.
Yeah. So very much.
Yeah, and I think the races being on, I've said this too, right? Like the races being on at 6 a.m. What bar am I going to watch this race at? None. Because it's 6 a.m, right? So
it's not like Grace and I can go down to the pub, you know, in the afternoon, have a beer, watch the race, you know, and have a great time or anything like that. It's 6 a.m, you know?
Right. And even for me, that's a little early to be drinking. So.
It's a little early. Paul, you know, maybe not. But
that's because he didn't go to sleep yet, right?
Well,
so
that's
he's still rolling around, right?
Right. He's on Greenwich Mean Time.
Exactly. You know? So, but yeah, I hope so. I hope that maybe. But I think honestly, ESPN carrying Formula One is the best thing that can be done for Formula One in America, because now it's on the Chiron and it gets commercials and it gets a lot more coverage. It gets a lot more, you know, eyeballs that way being on ESPN, even though ESPN's just running Sky's broadcast.
But Andrew, I think your point about tying that in with Haas starts to gain some traction. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't think that just Williams being owned by an American team actually increases or expands the coverage. But if we have Williams, Haas, the series itself owned by Formula One, if we could get an American driver in this series or two, would be huge. All of a sudden, if you've got 2 American teams, the series is owned by American, you've got a couple American drivers in there, all of a sudden you start gaining momentum around this, and then that would actually start working. People would be a little more interested. There'd be a little more news coverage in the sports and Sports Center and those kind of things, and you'd start to see that. So
for things other than accidents.
Yeah, right.
Right. You know, I think that's always where I feel better about my sport, is that it makes the headlines for something other than terribleness,
a crash
right, or some sort of incident. Like, make it about the racing. But I hear that Scoot Speed's available, so we could get him in a car, and I'm sure the best team owner would be Michael Andretti. So let's get the messiness full on for 2021.
Yeah, right.
Let's have Michael Andretti leading a Formula One team with Scoot Speed as his driver. I'm in.
Perfect.
And let's bring over Juan Pablo. I mean, we'll take him,
Why not?
right? I mean, he's Colombian, but he's been in the United States for a long time now.
Yeah.
So we'll just claim
Why
him,
not?
Dave Chappelle style, and we'll bring him on the team too, because who wouldn't want to watch Michael Andretti and Juan Pablo Montoya together? That's got to be fun.
That would be awesome.
That would be a great radio to listen into.
That'd be great.
I'd enjoy that.
So, all right. Anyway, thanks for the question, Andrew. Great to have you on board. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for listening from the UK. I
Good
really
question.
appreciate it. We have a lot of listeners in the UK, and we really appreciate all of you listening. And it's always interesting because on race weekends, I always do the Talk Sport Radio, and I always find it interesting that British folks would be interested in what a Yankee has to say about their sport. So appreciate listening. It's great. Great to have everyone. And finally, PG asks, just watching the start of the Indy 500 with the empty stands, it brought back the worst memories of an F1 race featuring cars. The stands were nearly empty at the finish. The best camera angle at the flag was over the shoulders of two fans who stayed and yelled boo on every lap. I remember that, PG. I do. And it was, that did occur to me. An empty stand at Grand Prix with racing going on was brutal. But Indy was just a real sober look, because I'm so used to seeing the greatest spectacle in racing loaded.
It's huge.
That place, if you've never been to Indy, that place is massive. And they jam, hundreds of thousands of people in there. So seeing that empty is just gutting.
Yeah.
It's just not good. And I know, PG, it has to be the same for the British fans at the British Grand Prix. I know they felt the same way, especially Lewis winning that thing on 3 tires, right? I mean, that place would have went insane.
Yeah.
Had the crowd been able to be there, It would have been insane.
Instead, it's just Ted Kravitz going boo.
It's just Ted Kravitz over the shoulder going boo. Each lap. No, it wasn't.
No.
So anyway, it's the heart of. That's the problem, man. I just feel like that, and I wish I was more eloquent, that I could put it better. But
I think that's absolutely it.
That the heart of racing is missing.
I mean, I think that's true of all the sports that are playing right now. There is a real. Yeah. It really is missing something by not having the fans there. I mean, we're in the middle of basketball playoffs, which again, I was joking too that I'm just gonna be like, wait, that guy plays for that team because there was such a break due to COVID, and now it's like a whole new season. I can't. Who knows? Indy's in August, right? So I think that but it is, you do really miss it, and that it's different for the, like Lewis has to get out and he's like, hey Ted, I won. Ted, woo! You know what I mean? Like, I just think, short of Valentino Rossi, it's kind of weird. Valley didn't care. He was celebrating that podium. He didn't care if there were fans in the stands or not. But
doesn't matter.
I do think it really is missing something, and
that is.
I hope that in another season we can have fans in the stands, or so at some place like Indy, which is huge, you could easily you figure out how to get people in.
Well,
and
they
out.
talked about that originally, only selling like 50,000 tickets or 30,000 tickets.
Well, the problem is the getting in there, right?
Yeah,
once you're in your seats, that's fine. There's plenty of space. You don't have to see it. You could be at Indy and not see another person if you only have that many people, but you have restrooms and concessions, and there's only so many gates and only so much parking, and that's where the problem becomes. But I do think something is missing. So I guess, and that is heartening in some way. At least we won't all be replaced by like cardboard cutouts and teddy bears, which are a lot cheaper,
Agreed. Yeah. I don't know what baseball game it was the other day. They had a cardboard cutout. It's kind of the thing in the US right now, behind the plate. So the camera is always looking over the shoulder of the pitcher towards the batter at home plate. That's the typical camera angle. And behind the batter and umpire sitting in the stands, they put up all these cardboard cutouts of famous people and all that.
Yeah.
And I got to give props to I can't remember what team did it, but they had Jimi Hendrix there.
Yeah.
I think, oh, that's cool.
This is great. I think that I think it's hilarious whenever one of the cardboard cutouts or the teddy bear gets hit in the head with a pop-up ball or something, right? Like that's great. Yeah, and the NBA's had the virtual fans, so that's great too when you see like famous people watching the basketball game as the virtual fans. And then
I'm just waiting for like the Cardinals to be playing, I don't know, the Mariners or something like that, and then back there will be a cardboard cutout of Nico Rosberg going.
So I wish I would have made this joke because it was pretty funny, but I think that so Rory Jr., who's on the Daily Show, made the joke that they should make they should have people behind the cardboard cutouts, so when the game starts going downhill, the cardboard cutouts leave just like the people do. I was like, yeah, that would be great, right? Like
good,
you're at the Orioles game, people just start leaving because this game is not getting better, right?
That's right. Oh,
that'd be good.
All right, well, that does it for this show, but be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it to core civility. Huge thank you to all of our patrons, supporters. I know a few of you are, it's tough times. I understand that, and I know a few of you are leaving, and I totally understand that. No judgment here, but for those of you that are remaining, I can't be more honest in saying we absolutely appreciate it. And if you've ever considered supporting us, we could use your support now for sure. So big thank you to all of you. We wouldn't and couldn't do this podcast without our Patreon supporters. So thank you so much to them. You can go to iTunes, give us a little love, give us a good rating over at iTunes. I'd appreciate that. And also you can check out our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, the Parc Fermé, and we can have fun and frivolity there. So
right,
this weekend is the Belgian Grand Prix at my favorite circuit on the calendar. So be sure to check that out. And then we shall be back next weekend to do this all over again and review the race. And until that time, this is Todd, AKA Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.